There is a phrase Jesus whispered at the end of his most sacred prayer, and almost no one alive today knows what it truly meant. It was not a farewell. It was not filler. It was a key. Hidden inside the closing words of the Lord's Prayer is an Aramaic phrase of gratitude so powerful that those who understood it walked in provision, while those who lost it walked in lack. Tonight, we recover that lost phrase, and I will show you exactly how to speak it. On the dusty hillsides above the Sea of Galilee, Jesus did not teach in the language we read today. He taught in Aramaic, a tongue where words were not simply spoken, te were felt, carrying vibration. Weight, an intention that modern translation quietly erased somewhere between empires and centuries. At the close of the prayer, he gave his followers the one we now call the Lord's Prayer. There is a line most modern Bibles render simply as forever or forever and ever. Small words, easy to skip past, but in the original Aramaic, that closing line was Teshbukhta lalum, A-L-M-I-N, and it did not mean a passive, distant forever. It meant something closer to glory that radiates through all worlds. Without end, a living declaration of gratitude spoken before the answer arrived, not after. This is the detail almost everyone misses. Teshbukhta lalim alman was not a closing formality. It was the engine of the entire prayer. Jesus was not just requesting daily bread, forgiveness, and deliverance. He was closing every request with an act of gratitude so total, so certain, that it functioned like a seal. Ancient Aramaic listeners understood. You do not truly receive until you have first given thanks, as if you already possess it. This single shift from asking to thanking is what today's episode will help you recover. Maybe you know this feeling. You pray for provision, and still, the bills arrive. You ask for a way forward in your finances, and the silence afterward feels heavier than the need itself. It is a particular kind of exhaustion, not just financial strain, but the quiet ache of wondering whether your prayers are even being heard. That ache often shows up as a tightness in the chest, a low hum of anxiety that follows you into the grocery store, into the mailbox, into the moments right before sleep, when the mind runs numbers it cannot resolve. Scarcity does not just empty the wallet, it narrows the breath. Here is what almost no one is taught. Unresolved lack is rarely a lack of provision. It is far more often a lack of gratitude spoken before the provision arrives. Ancient teaching, carried through Jesus' own words, held that thanksgiving was not the reward for receiving, it was the doorway to it. In a few moments, I am going to give you a short guided prayer, one built directly from the Aramaic words Jesus himself used, designed to be spoken over your finances, your home, your future. It is brief. It is only 30 seconds long, but it is built on a phrase so old, so intentional, that it has carried families through famine and still carries them today. If this teaching has opened a new perspective for you, our Aramaic Wisdom Guide can help you continue this journey. After all, true knowledge sets us free. You'll find the link in the comments, and the best is yet to come. In the next chapters, you'll discover what could change everything for you. Before we go further, let us speak this together. Close your eyes, if you are able, and let these words become your own. Teshbukhta, lalam, alem glory, that radiates through all worlds. Without end, I come before you, not with a request, but with thanks already in my mouth. I thank you for the provision already moving toward me, for the doors already opening, for the bread already rising in my home. I release the grip of worry, for you have never once forgotten your own. Let gratitude go before me like a light, and let provision follow it like a shadow follows the sun. Teshbukhta lalam almin. Now let us return to the word itself, because understanding it changes how it works inside you. Teshbukhta comes from a root meaning praise, radiance, or glory, but not glory as mere admiration. In the Aramaic imagination, glory was something that moved. It traveled outward from a source and touched everything nearby, the way heat moves from a flame or light moves from a lamp. To speak Teshbukhta was to release something, not to describe a feeling, but to activate a force. Lulum almin deepens. This olam relates to hidden ages, Unseen spans of time, the word carries a sense of layers upon layers of existence, worlds within worlds. Alman extends that outward, without boundary. Together, the phrase does not simply mean forever the way a clock ticks forward. It means something closer to glory that moves through every hidden layer of reality, touching what you can see and what you cannot. This is why Jesus placed it at the very end of his prayer. Not as decoration, as detonation. The final word was meant to release the whole prayer outward, into every hidden layer where the answer was already forming, long before it ever reached your hands. To understand how deliberately Jesus used this phrase, we have to look at where it lived inside the very structure of the prayer he taught his disciples, recorded for us in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6. When his followers asked him how to pray, Jesus did not hand them a formula of complaints or a checklist of needs. He gave them a pattern, one that moved from honoring God's name to requesting daily bread, to releasing debts and forgiveness, and finally, in its original Aramaic form, to that closing seal Teshbukhta hate alahlam almin. Notice the order. Provision. Give us this day our daily bread comes in the middle of the prayer, not the end. It is surrounded on both sides by trust in God's name at the beginning, and trust expressed as glory at the end. The request for bread is held, on either side, by gratitude. Jesus was demonstrating, in real time, that provision was never meant to be asked for in isolation. It was meant to be wrapped in thanksgiving before the need was even fully spoken. This is strikingly different from how many of us pray today. We often ask, then wait anxiously, then ask again, treating gratitude as something reserved for after the answer comes. But the original structure Jesus modeled reverses this order entirely. Thanksgiving was not the reward. Thanksgiving was the request's companion, spoken in the same breath, carrying the same weight. Aramaic-speaking communities who preserved this prayer in its original form understood this instinctively. To close a request with Teshbukhta, lolum almin, was to say, I have already received this in the unseen layers of existence. Now let it appear in the seen one. It was not wishful thinking. It was a spiritual pattern, taught directly by Jesus, and it still works the same way today. Perhaps you're wondering why these original teachings remained hidden for so long. That's why we created the Aramaic Wisdom Guide, because true knowledge sets us free. The link is waiting for you in the comments. There is a quiet divide between those who understand this teaching and those who never encounter it, and it shows up in the most ordinary places. Two people can face the exact same financial pressure, the same overdue bill, the same uncertain month, the same silence from an employer who has not yet responded. One carries it like a stone in the stomach, checking the bank balance 5 times a day, bracing for bad news before it arrives. The other carries it differently. Not because the circumstances changed, but because something inside them shifted first. That difference is not optimism. It is not simply positive thinking. It is the ancient pattern. Jesus modeled gratitude spoken before the provision is visible, releasing Teshbukhta lalamalman into the hidden layers of reality before the answer ever surfaces into the scene. Those who carry this pattern move through scarcity with a kind of settled expectancy. Those who don't are left negotiating with fear every single day, treating each unanswered prayer as evidence that they were forgotten. But here is something important, and I want you to hold on to it until we reach chapter 6, because there is a common mistake almost everyone makes when they first try to use this phrase, and it quietly cancels out its power. Most people, once they learn a sacred word like Teshbukhta lalom, almin, begin repeating it the way they'd repeat a lucky phrase, quickly, mechanically, sometimes even anxiously, as if the words alone were a magic formula that works regardless of the heart behind them. They speak it while still gripping the fear tightly in one hand and the sacred word in the other, hoping the words will do the work that only surrender can do. This mistake is subtle, and it is common, and it is the reason many people say they tried gratitude and felt nothing change. The phrase was never meant to be recited at your fear. It was meant to replace it. And in the next chapter, I will show you exactly how Jesus' own followers were taught to make that shift practically. Today, in your own, the practical layer. So, let's resolve it. The mistake we named in chapter 5, reciting Teshbukhta, like a formula while still gripping fear underneath it, is corrected not by saying the words more forcefully, but by changing what you do in the moment right before you speak them. Here is the practical shift. Before you say the phrase, physically name what you are afraid will not happen. Not vaguely, specifically. I am afraid the rent will not be covered this month. I am afraid this opportunity will fall through. Speak the fear out loud. Once, plainly. This is not weakness, it is honesty. And honesty is what clears the ground. Jesus never asked his followers to pretend fear wasn't there. He asked them to bring it into the light before releasing it. Then and only then, speak Teshbukhta lolam almen slowly, as an exhale rather than a request. Let the phrase land not as a wish thrown upward, but as a quiet certainty released outward, the way light leaves a lamp without asking permission. This is the difference between reciting a sacred phrase and actually activating it. One comes from tension, the other comes from surrender. You can do this today, right where you are. It does not require a church, a candle, or a special hour. It requires only honesty first, then gratitude second, spoken in that order. Every time worry rises about money, provision, or what is still unseen in your life, over time, this reordering becomes instinctive, fear surfaces, you name it. You release Teshbukhta lolam almin, and the tightness in the chest begins to loosen before the circumstance itself has even changed. This is the practical layer that ancient Aramaic communities carried into famine, into exile, into uncertain harvests, and it carried them through. It is not a technique. It is a pattern Jesus himself modeled, and it is available to you the next time worry knocks. We are just scratching the surface of this ancient power. Get ready, because in our next video, I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock spiritual authority you've never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss this unfolding revelation. Picture an ordinary Tuesday, the kind of day nothing dramatic happens, no crisis, no breakthrough, just the slow grind of bills, errands, and a bank app you're almost afraid to open. This is where the teaching either becomes real or stays theoretical. Ancient wisdom that only works in a quiet meditation room is not wisdom Jesus ever intended. He taught in marketplaces, on hillsides, in the middle of ordinary, unremarkable days, exactly like this one. So imagine you're standing at the counter, envelope in hand, the number inside larger than what's currently in your account, the old pattern says. Open it. Feel the drop in your stomach, spiral into calculations, and worry for the rest of the afternoon. The new pattern, the one carried inside Teshbukhta lolam almin, says something different. Before opening it, you pause. You name the fear plainly, the way we practiced. I am afraid this bill will overwhelm me. Then, quietly, you exhale the phrase, not as performance, not as magic words, but as a settled release into the unseen layers, where provision is already forming, long before it appears in your hands. This is not denial of the bill. The number is still real, but something in you has changed before you even open the envelope. And that internal shift is what ancient Aramaic teaching understood provision to actually depend on, not pretending lack doesn't exist, but refusing to let lack be the loudest voice in the room. This same pattern applies whether you're facing an overdue payment, waiting on a job offer, or simply lying awake doing math in your head at midnight. Name it, release Teshbukhta lolam almin. Let gratitude go ahead of you into the hidden layers. The way Jesus taught it should before the answer, not after. Just a quick reminder, the transformation guides for a fuller life are waiting for you. Right there in the comments. Transformation Protocol. We will not repeat the prayer from chapter 3. You already carry it now. Instead, I want to leave you with something to practice daily until it becomes as natural as breathing. Each morning before you check your phone, before the day's worries have a chance to load themselves into your mind. Speak Teshbukhta lolam almin once, slowly, as your very first words of the day. Let it be the seal placed on the day before anything else is placed on it. Then, each evening, before sleep, speak it again, this time as a closing seal, releasing whatever the day held, unresolved or otherwise, into those same hidden layers Jesus described. Twice daily, morning and evening. Not rushed, not mechanical, spoken as an exhale, the way we practiced in Chapter 6, gratitude going ahead of you rather than trailing behind as an afterthought. Over weeks, this rhythm begins to reshape something quiet but real. The tightness that used to rise with every unopened bill starts arriving softer, shorter, easier to release. Before you leave, if this message touched your heart or brought new understanding into your life, WRITE, the word restoration in the comments below. Your testimony may encourage someone else who is seeking healing and renewal. Thank you for sharing this moment of ancient wisdom with us. Until the next revelation, walk in peace, walk in freedom, and walk in the power be open.